Hi, Stephen Callahan here with Fast Apps Script for Teachers. We're going to take about 5 minutes and we're going to learn a little bit of coding to help you in your life. And while we're at it, we're going to learn a California computer science standard. Now, we're still working on our popsicle sticks program. This is our third part of it. Remember the first time we learned how to just tie a script to an event. So when we pressed a button, a script ran. The second time we wanted to look at how we could gather data every time that we called on a student. This time we're going to add in an intervention ability for our program. While we're at it, we're going to go back to standard 3-5 AP12, create programs that include events, loops, and conditions. I had promised we'd come back and we'd learn the loops and conditions part. Now a loop, or an iteration, is when we have code that runs over and over and over again. And we're going to use that in order to achieve our goal. Let's look at our program. So right here, you'll notice it looks the same as before, but I've added in another button, this intervention button. And we've tied that to a script. Let's open up the script editor. Remember, you can get to that by clicking on Tools and Script Editor. You'll notice the myFunction function, which we had before, and then this showStudent function, which will pop up that dialog that asks whether or not the student got the answer correct. But we've also added in another function here for intervention. And what that's going to do is it's going to go straight to my data column. It's going to gather that information and put it into an array, a set of values. In this case, the values are the numbers, how many correct someone has gotten during this period of time. So, this is our first time that we have iteration. This for loop looks at that array and it goes through the array and it adds that value to a number called average. That's kind of how we take an average, right? You add up each number in a group and then you divide by how many there were. So that's how we calculated the average score in the class. I decided that the average score was going to be our threshold. Now, you're the coder, you're the engineer, you might want the third of scores that are lowest to be the ones that we call on. I just went with halfway. Now that we have our threshold, what I did was I collected all the students' names, and then we're going to use the loop again, or a different loop. See, we've chosen a random student's name, and we're going to iterate through, and our condition to check and see if this is the person we want to call on checks to see if their score is greater than the threshold. If the score is greater than the threshold, then that's not the person we're going to call on, and we're going to choose another random student. This way, we're calling on people who need that intervention. At this point, we bring up that function or we bring up the dialog because we've called the function that does that. Okay, I'm going to save. Let's try this out. So I'm going to click on Next Student. It's going to give me a random student, Peter. Okay. Let's try again. Tony. Let's say no, Tony was not correct. Scores have changed a little bit, notice. Call again. Peter. Did Peter answer correctly? Let's say yes. I'm going to call in one more student. Peter again. This time we're going to say no. And then Natasha, and yes, Natasha got it correct. Okay, now we want the intervention. Maybe I don't want to necessarily call on Sam or Bruce. Maybe I want to give a little bit more attention to a student who's having a little bit of trouble. So I'm going to click on Intervention. Notice Tony comes up because his score is below average. Chance for him to improve his score and to give extra assistance. I hope this was helpful. Go ahead, try out improving our previous program so that it has the ability to add an intervention. Maybe you want to set your own threshold, what you think would be helpful. Anyway, speaking of helpful, I hope this was helpful. Please keep coding. See you back here later. Bye.